Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. It is Supermac and Gibbo back after a week off due to my daughter having a prom last week. Great to see you, Malcolm. Great to see you, John.
And nice good to see you, Steve.
Nice to be here, mate.
Yeah, great to see you. And let's get straight into the Newcastle United chat. Tom Dixon was straight in to say, great to see Newcastle's new signing Tonali has today visited St James's Park for the first time with his partner and his agent. Malcolm, we finally got one through the door. It took a little bit of time to do the big announcement because he's, of course, been at the under-21s.
Under-21s, yes.
But this guy joins a bit of a list. There's our six top signings, top transfer signings. 5 of them have come in under this regime. They've certainly lived by the word, and they've invested in not just players, but invested in top quality players. And this guy is going to join the likes of Sven Botman, Bruno Guimaraes, Alexander Isak, Joe Linton, who thought would ever say that, but he's going to be joining, and Anthony Gordon as well, who we'll come to in a bit. But from our perspective, it's a great signing, and he's an Italian.
And whoever thought that Newcastle United would be buying players from AC Milan, for heaven's sake? If anything, it would have been the other way around. But things are changing dramatically, not just at Newcastle, but generally through European football. But there is one thing that is just bugging me a bit, because everybody keeps saying he's a defensive midfield player. Everything I've seen of this guy, he's on the left-hand side in midfield, and he runs on the ball superbly. He's got a terrific left foot. And from what I've seen, he's not a defensive midfield player as such, but more of a left-hand side player. So I'm going to be very, very interested indeed to see just how he fits into the side and how the side fits around him.
It's going to be interesting to see how he plays with Bruno, because like Bruno, he can do a bit of everything.
Yes.
The Italian boy, and Bruno can play just in front of the back four. He can sit, or he can target their penalty area. This guy can do the same. So they'll have to work in shuttles, I would think.
Sure.
But it's going to be interesting, because when everybody's fit, and pray that's how it's going to be at the opening day of the season. When everybody's fit, you're certainly going to have Tonali and Bruno in your midfield, plus one more. Now, is that Joe Linton, or is it Willock, or Longstaff, long shot, I guess? But it's who the third person is going to be. Yes, you could play Joe Linton in the left position up in the front three, and keep him in the team and play Willock. But the interesting is that, in theory, one of 4 is going to be left out, which would probably be either Willock or Joe Linton.
I think it's a little bit on the brutal side, but I'm getting the deep impression that we're going to be moving on beyond Willock and beyond Sean Longstaff. I think Sean Longstaff has been absolutely brilliant, and I think he's helped Willock an awful lot. But I think that we are now looking to go stages much higher than what we've seen, and it's a shame for these guys, because I think that in particular Sean Longstaff, that his the actual numbers that he clocked up last season were absolutely terrific. But I think that the club is just moving on to much bigger, grander things. And of course, that includes playing in the Champions League.
But I mean, that's the whole thing, isn't it, Malcolm? That really, over the season, everybody's going to get a good shake at it, because there's 4 top competitions. You're talking about the Premier League and the Champions League, which will dominate our thoughts. But please do not lose sight of the FA Cup and the League Cup, because that's the way we win our first silverware. That's our best chance, because we're not going to win this coming season the Champions League or the Premier League. So if we're going to get our first trophy, it's going to be the FA Cup or the League Cup. So we are in 4 competitions. That being so, we're going to need them all, aren't we? I mean, we've only got to look at the last game of the season against Chelsea and look at our midfield. There was no Joe Linton. There was no Longstaff. There was no Willock. We had to put Gordon, a winger, into the midfield, and Elliott Anderson had to start, one of the young boys coming through.
Yes.
We were so stretched. We're going to get stretched like that again. So far, we've only got one addition to the squad, which is Tonali. There's got to be more. But, it looks on paper as though we're well stocked in midfield. But it's not quite so. Once you get injuries, once you get a suspension, when you get deep into the season, when you've got 4 competitions to play in and you want to do well in all 4, it's going to take everybody's hands, isn't it? It might be that Longstaff and Willett don't start, but I bet they play a fair number of matches over the whole season.
Yeah. If you look at Manchester City, who have had a number of years in the Champions League, they can put out 2 comparable sides.
Sure.
And I think that perhaps is what we're looking to do, because if you are going to be successful in Europe and domestically, you need a squad, a full squad of 25. All on pretty much the same par of talent, and so it's going to be interesting. But of course, this nonsense is holding us back. The fair play stuff.
Sure.
I really can't see how it can be considered reasonable and fair, because it's actually holding Newcastle back in terms of competing with Chelsea and Arsenal and what have you. And why? Because the value of the club is not high enough. Its turnover isn't on a par. Well, good heavens above, I just think, well, it wasn't that long ago that Leicester won the Premier League, for heaven's sake, and they're not given that opportunity. In fact, they've just been relegated, and so they were always going to be held back because of their lack of finance.
Interesting stuff. A lot of people are saying that there is a link today. It's a tenuous one, I would say. Bonucci has been linked. Great player, as Tom says. He's 36. Is it worth it for a season? BT says Bonucci's only started 9 Serie A matches for Juventus last season. His best days are past, and he's on 220 grand a week. To pay him twice as much as any Newcastle player currently gets is ridiculous. I think it's pie in the sky, but the reason I highlighted that one, Malcolm, is that there is a lot of people talking about potentially Newcastle bringing in another Italian to help them settle in. Now, you're not going to buy somebody to help them settle in, are you, Malcolm? You're going to buy another player because he's equally, well, he's the kind of player Eddie Howe wants, and he's got to have to be a good player.
Sure. The Brazilians have come over with their families. When you've got your family around you, then it's not difficult to fit in.
I mean,
there's always a challenge for everybody.
No. We don't want a 36-year-old coming for his last payday. He wouldn't fit into what the current Newcastle United situation is.
Well, it isn't, anyway. And it's completely against the way that the club is working.
He's not going to play in a
23-year-olds.
He's not going to play in a high-press team at the age of 36, etc., etc. He's already playing for Juventus. I think it's absolutely, totally pie in the sky, as is the fact that we need an Italian to help an Italian settle. I mean, that's an absolute nonsense. There wasn't a Brazilian when Joe Linton first come. There hasn't been a Paraguayan to help Almirez, etc., etc. You don't. You sign for the right reasons. Signing a 36-year-old is the wrong reason, and signing an Italian so another Italian can settle in is another wrong reason. You just sign quality. And if you've noticed the way we go, at the start, we've signed much more experienced players, 31-year-old and Trippier, Pope's now 30, Byrne is now 30. But since then, we've been signing people. I mean, when we got Gordon, he was 21. He was quickly 22, but he was 21. Isaac's 23. Botman is 23. We're signing people in that age group who are already good. Tonali is 23. Already good, but are going to get so much better.
Yeah.
And that makes a lot of sense.
And the good years are in front of them, whereas you look at a 36-year-old, the good years are way behind.
Oh, yeah, totally. Yeah. No, I wouldn't give that leg room, and please,
no, mate.
Yeah. Okay. Plenty of questions coming in. If you want a question to Malcolm or John, send them over, and I'll try and highlight them. We'll try and get through as many as possible. Mighty Win says, question, Malcolm, about finance. Have you watched Britain's biggest football scandal yet?
No.
John, have you watched that?
No, was that when Mike Ashley and Steve Bruce was at Newcastle?
That's a great answer.
Is this
it's a documentary.
About Manchester City then, with all they've got out 115 charges against them.
Could be about Everton. Could be about anybody, really. Yeah, not Newcastle. That's for certain. I'm going to Google it. He keeps putting this in the chat. I will have a look.
I haven't heard of it, so
we'll have a look. We'll have a look at that.
Indeed.
Stephen Anderson says, "Hi, Malcolm. If you were in Harry Kane's boots, would you want to stay and break the Premier League's top goal scoring record, or move to Bayern and win a trophy?"
It's a very, very good question. Is that but I can't see Harry Kane, captain of England, allowing his career to be overly affected by chasing a record. You look to get your own performance absolutely right and keep the goals coming in. A record really isn't that important, I don't think. But making the right move, if it's there, that's vitally important. And
Levi's going to be a problem, Malcolm, in what happens to him, because if you remember 2 years ago, Levy, the chairman, he stopped him going to Manchester City. Remember that?
Yes.
Two years ago, and then last season he got Haaland. Now this season he is saying, Daniel Levy is saying off the record that I don't want him to go into a Premier League club because he can torture us. So therefore, I'm going to block him going to Manchester United. Now, the simple answer is to whether you stay here and get the goal scoring record of the Premier League or go to Bayern Munich and win a trophy. It could be Harry Kane would say, I can do both. I can go to Manchester United and beat the Premier League record and win a trophy. He doesn't have, it's not, you know, having to go abroad's not the only way he can win a trophy. He can win a trophy.
No, that's true.
If he'd gone to Manchester City, he would have won a trophy, wouldn't he? But Levy is going to be a right problem here because he blocked Manchester City. He's talked privately on the grapevine, marking cards of journos and people like that he doesn't want Kane to go to Manchester United or any other Premier League club because they can torture Spurs. Now then, so you then think, well, Bayern Munich have got a free run at him. But it's transpired that Tuchel, you know, the old Chelsea manager who's now manager of Bayern Munich, has got in touch direct with Harry Kane and talked to Harry Kane, persuading him to go to Bayern Munich. Daniel Levy's found out, so he's got the pet lip on. He doesn't want him to go to Bayern Munich now. I mean, where's he going to be left to play for? I mean, it's possible Wigan Athletic. It's possible Forest Green Rovers. If he likes a Jolly Green Giant and gets the green gear on, or it's Cocky Licky Juniors. That's all his choice is going to be. Levy stopping him going to so many places. And really, I mean, he's got to move now if he's going to move at all. He's 29. Yeah. He could sit tight and not sign a new contract at Spurs and go for free in a year's time. But then he's 30. He's at an age now where he can't cut the years down too much. He's got to move if he's going to move, or believe Spurs are going to win something under the Greek-Australian guy from Celtic, and stay. But it is a difficult situation for him, because it does look like now or never in terms of winning trophies, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Great question. That keep them coming in. Question for Supermax is, Gary, do you think Willock and Longstaff will improve, grow, and benefit from playing in the Champions League?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt, yes. Yes, they will improve leaps and bounds. It will be an absolutely fantastic and wonderful experience for them. It's hard work, because all of a sudden, from these past few seasons where they've been playing pretty much just one game a week, all of a sudden you're going to go through long periods playing 2 games every week, and some players they can't hack it. I used to love it, 2 games a week, and if there wasn't a midweek game to play, oh, what a long week it was. But they will improve dramatically by it. Whether their improvement is enough to stake a place in the team, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's a good question, that, John. I mean, players will benefit. I've got to point out as well, I mean, Sean Longstaff and Jacob Murphy this week highlighted in the Chronicle as training already, but with non-league Newcastle Blue Star, John.
Well, yes, perhaps they've got scared by the signing an Italian boy. I mean, the simple answer is Champions League does improve you. The coaching of Eddie Howe does improve you, but you have a ceiling. Every player has a ceiling, which is natural ability. You can work twice as hard and make yourself twice the player you would have been. Frank Clark did that totally and utterly, and made himself twice the player he could have been on natural ability. Believe it or not, Kevin Keegan did. Kevin Keegan had good ability and was quite a very good player. But the reason he went beyond that is because he was so dedicated to want to do that. Funny enough, Dan Burn's got that. The reason Dan Burn hacked it at left back and is playing in a Champions League side next season, having pushed the trolleys at Asda and played for Darlington and Yeovil Town and Wigan, is because he's got the heart the size of a frying pan and he's made the ultimate of his ability. You can't do that. But there's still a ceiling beyond which you can't go any further. I mean, Longstaff, bless him, and I am a fan like Malcolm is, but he's not going to become an England player, however much he plays in the Champions League or anywhere else. There's a ceiling to his ability, and there's a ceiling to the ability of Murphy and of Willock. Although Willock's been talked about as a possible England player, but heck, I remember when some people used to talk about Lascelles being a possible England player, and these things happen. People get carried away, but you can improve way beyond what you believe. And haven't we seen that since Eddie come in? We've seen that with Joe Linton. We've seen that with Almiron. We've seen it with Shaw. But they will only go to a certain level. And beyond that, you cannot, because that's the ceiling of your ability. Frank Clark was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful left back. Best defender, as Malcolm says, at Newcastle at the time. Yeah. And he won a European trophy with Newcastle and the Champions League with Nottingham Forest. But he wasn't going to ever play for England. No. There is a level to your ability beyond which you can train as much as you like. You can get as much experience as you like. You can get as much coaching as you like. But you'll never smash through that glass ceiling, because that's where your level is. But you can half make the best of yourself. And I think...
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
You know, he's an example. Dan Burn's an example of people making the very, very best of themselves. But they're not going to go the whole journey. Newcastle will, as Malcolm said, go beyond Sean Longstaff, etc., over the next couple of years as a first teamer. Maybe not as a bench player, but as a first team starter.
Sure. And I'm pretty sure that Sean is fully aware of it, knows that he's going to have to work damn hard and seriously improve on a constant basis. And as you say, John, that at some point he will hit his ceiling.
Yes, he will. Yes, he will.
Yeah.
And your ceiling's your ceiling. And nobody's got more admiration for Frank Clark, for example, in Supermac, and me, who was around at the time. But I never thought he was going to become an England player. Because his ceiling was just beneath that. But he all made the best of himself.
Yeah, but he was the best defender in the country.
Dan Burn's making the very best of himself.
Yes, he is.
I again don't think that's going to make him an England player. But I've got admiration, and isn't it terrific?
Sure. And it's not going to make him or give him a permanent place in the side.
Not at all. Not at all. The more Newcastle develop, the less chance there is of that. Well, you know, it sounds very critical and awful, but I actually hope Newcastle develops so far that people like Sean Longstaff and Dan Burn can't get regular starts in the Newcastle team.
Yeah.
Because if they're going to win the Premier League or the Champions League, they won't be getting automatic starts, those guys.
You know, John, football, it's a bit of a cruel game. Because you're successful one year. And I remember when I got promotion with Luton from the third division to the second division. And it's well done, everybody. Fantastic. Absolutely great. Come the next season, there's about 10 new faces in the dressing room. And there's a whole number of the guys from the previous year missing. They've gone.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, success. It can finish up at being a boot up the backside.
You look at the success of Man City, and people like Aguero looked irreplaceable.
Yes,
I mean, the greatest centre forward the Premier League's seen, and I know there's Alan Shearer, but Alan said outside of him, he is the greatest. Irreplaceable. All of a sudden, he has to retire. He's sold one season on. He has to retire with heart trouble. All of a sudden, Manchester City are still winning the Premier League every season, and they've got a bloke called Holland who's scoring 52 goals by Christmas. You know, I mean, Mahrez was the most wonderful winger you've ever seen. He hardly played in the last 3 months of the last season when they won the treble. He hardly started.
Because he couldn't get in the side.
David Silva was the greatest thing you've ever seen. Have they stopped winning trophies after David Silva left? No. Not a chance. It just rolls on. And you know what? I want Newcastle to be so good that people will love right now, like Dan Burn, cannot get in the starting team. Because if we're going to win the Premier League and the Champions League before I die, which has got to be pretty quick, I want somebody better than that in the team to make it happen.
Sure. And it's a bit like the royal family that...
I've never thought of that, Malcolm.
The king is dead. Long live the king.
No, it was the queen.
It's just immediate takeover.
Yes. I thought you were talking about that show on television, The Royal Family, where they all sat and watched the telly. You remember? Remember that one? That was a talk. I love that one.
Ian Toon Trader's written us a song. We've got Stevie in the middle. He knows exactly what we need. Supermac on the left. Gibbo is the best. Newcastle's going to win the Premier League.
Hey, I tell you what, do I love that man? I love that man.
Fantastic. Barry, good evening, mate. Barry is the man compiling our list of players that we've been linked with since the 6th of June. Last week it was at 164. So that's basically a month in, and we're at 164. There'll be more by the time we get to Sundays.
Barry'll have to go out and get a couple of more exercise books to get the names in.
He will do.
Next week and a half.
That's a big scroll.
There's only one name actually come in, but there's 164 we've been linked with.
Exactly. He says that John Mal, should defensive reinforcements be our next priority? Right back, right-sided centre back, and left back maybe. Any of those positions?
It's not the next priority. I think it's a priority now, and they're looking to find the right person who is eventually going to take over from Trippier. They're on that.
I mean,
everything is constant.
Yeah, absolutely, Malcolm. Shaw's going to need replacing first.
Yes.
I would suggest time-wise, which is why you want your right-sided centre half. Trippier is going to be replacing eventually. He's got a lot in him, but you don't just look at the day. I mean, you know, Newcastle under Ashley used to look at who will replace somebody, not the day he's going out the revolving door, but 2 years after he's gone out and saying, we never did get somebody for that position, did we? You know, you can't have that. It's interesting that Harry Ashby may not be seen as you need somebody in between, which is why we're looking at the Southampton guy. But we need to have backup for Shaw. It would appear we're looking, and Newcastle know what they're doing, for backup for Trippier, and we need a left back now.
Yeah,
we need a left back now because
this is why they're looking at.
Dan's not a left back.
Sure, this is why they're looking at like 21 and 22-year-olds who are when they're going to go into the team on a full-time basis, they're going to be 23, that much wiser, more experienced, and better players.
I tell you what,
will know the Newcastle way of doing things.
Considering that, looking at the left back situation, guys, at Newcastle, we all accept that we need a genuine class, automatic left back, despite the fact that Dan
with pace
phenomenally. Oh yes, because Dan hasn't got that.
Yeah,
he did phenomenally well given his height and his ability, and the fact that he likes to play in the centre of the defence with people around him rather than be exposed left back. He was truly, truly magnificent. But you know what? You look at that, and if I'm Target, and if I'm Paul Dummett, and if I'm Jamal Lewis, who are supposed to be orthodox left backs, pucker left backs, spent their whole career playing left back, and you see Big Dan playing in your position ahead of you, you've got to get out, haven't you? You've got to go to another club and save your career and play elsewhere. And, we might be...
There are so many players, it seems to me, John, in the game these days who are quite happy not to play.
Oh, sure. Oh, yes, absolutely. And if you go far enough, there's been players, Gareth Bale at Real Madrid. For the last 4 years, he must have tripped over the line along the side of the pitch if he tried to come off the bench. And he was happy. He just advertised the fact that he was playing golf all the time. And now he's retired. He's going to be a long time retired. And what a talent he was originally. But he didn't seem bothered about not playing. And that surprises me when people do that, because they're going to be a long time retired. I must admit, with my mentality, and I'm probably wrong and they're possibly right, but I couldn't do what Jamal Lewis is doing and what Paul Dummett's doing and what Matt Ritchie's doing, which is stay at Newcastle and get on in the 89th minute, perhaps in 4 games. I would have to do more than that, to be truthful.
Yeah, me too, John. Without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah.
Okay,
I remember Keith Birkinshaw. He took me off when we were at Burnley, and I think it's the only time that I remember being substituted if I wasn't injured, and I was absolutely livid.
I think it was that just before Berkey left the club.
Something like that.
All right, guys, we're halfway through the show. It is time for the ads. Just before I go into the ads, England reached stumps today on 68 for 3, trailing Australia by 195 runs. Quite quite a game, that. But they're going to lose it, I think. Too many drop catches, chaps. But we will come to people who drop catches after this.
A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. Their website is mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to contact the guys, email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Big thanks to New Workwear. They are an agile and dedicated workwear provider launched in 2018. For more information, go to their website, newworkwear.com. Big thanks, as always, to Media Arts for the help with the video side of things. If you want to support the channel, hit the subscribe button, become a subscriber today. Hit the thumb up under the video, which likes the video, and click share to share to your other social media. Click join if you want to become a member of the channel for as little as $1.99, or take a one-off payment for the cult membership. You can get in via this QR code if you've got a smartphone, or look for membership pack on the website, nufcmatters.com. What do you get for your one-off £25 payment? You get a scarf, a pen, and a cup, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. Don't forget, if you want a car sticker, all you need to do is subscribe to the show and then email John at NUFC Matters, and he will post you a free car sticker out. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. And we also support the food bank on this channel. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is the virtual matchday bucket where you can make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. The new Alan Shearer raffle is underway. 150 tickets at £1 a ticket. You could win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball from the 260 dinner. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. We've got a few events coming up. August the 5th sees Gavin Peacock at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £10, and you can get them now from nufcmatters.com. Our Christmas event takes place on the 7th of December at the Tyneside Irish Centre, and that's an evening with Frank Clark. Tickets are £15 and available from nufcmatters.com. Finally, Waddle, Keegan, Beardsley and Friends, the class of 84, is on at the Town Theatre and Opera House on Westgate Road in Newcastle on Thursday, January the 23rd. Tickets are now available from the Town Theatre and Opera House.co.uk or telephone 0844 2491 000. That's the box office telephone number 0844 2491 000.
Okay, just before the break, John Ball sent this question in. I did say it was about people who could drop catches. John Ball says, what about the goalkeeping front? Do we need a higher class goalkeeper to contend with Pope? Does he need a bit of competition, Malcolm? And we've got goalkeepers aplenty, I think. But from our perspective, maybe, I guess the point John's trying to make is, do we need somebody who's going to put him under pressure?
I don't know. I think Dubravka's up to doing that job, personally.
Okay, John?
It's an interesting situation, the goalkeepers overall. I agree with Malcolm that if you're looking at a backup, and you've got to bear in mind the backup will probably play about 2 games all season, for Pope deciding he's going to nut the ball into touch and instead catches it and puts it up his jumper and gets sent off. And if he doesn't do that, then Dubravka might appear in the early rounds of the FA Cup or the League Cup, and that might just be it. You're going to have a tough job getting a top goalkeeper that's going to put up with that. Having said that, the situation is still very, very fluid at goalkeeping level, because as we speak now, we've got Gillespie who's taken an extension to his contract. But I mean, with respect, God bless him, he's going to get as close as waving at the keepers during the warm-up. I mean, he's not going to be playing. He is the 4th choice. That's good. We need that. And he's going to take that on for another season. Great. But after that, who's the 3rd choice? Because Darlow looks as if he's sitting thinking about, is it Middlesbrough? Is it Leeds or is it Hull City? So he's going, and that's thoroughly understandable. He wants first team football. And Karius, the Scarlet Pimpernel, the invisible man that appeared at Wembley.
I only play in cup finals.
I was going to say he's never been seen again. Well, when we get to a cup final next season, mate, you're not going to play. I'm sorry. We're not going to have that because we're going to win it. But no, he could be third choice. We've offered him terms, but he is now a free agent because we're into July. He's now officially a free agent. His good lady doesn't want him to sign for Newcastle, evidently because it's not too close to Italy and there's no direct flights. So that's snookered.
Newcastle, no.
I mean, we just need Kevin Keegan to persuade him, who told Rob Lee that Newcastle was closer to London than Middlesbrough. We just need him to get a word with him. But we still need, if we have our first choice goalkeeper, Pope, and Dubrovka as backup, and Gillespie as fourth, we still need to nail on a third because it ain't going to be Darlow, and it looks as if Karius ain't going to accept the offer. So we will have to sign the keeper to sit as our third keeper. So it's a fluid situation.
Yep, certainly is. John, good evening, mate. His question for Malcolm: how much of a role did you play in the Mirandina transfer, and was it lucrative without revealing any figures?
Yes, I played a significant role in it, and it's not easy pulling all sides together, particularly when you're dealing with a foreign club, foreign player, foreign directors, and what have you. You have to stay very much on your toes to make sure that it comes through with all people satisfied. Let's put it that way. So all parties satisfied. So yeah, it went okay, but there's always bits of nonsense that go on, always.
Okay,
yeah.
That's
It was relatively lucrative at the time.
Yeah.
In terms of comparing it to today, no, because it's mega bucks today. Organising transfers, seriously.
Talking about Newcastle signing the first Brazilian, which you did as his agent, you shouldn't have been in on the Mirror deal. You should have been in on the Bruno deal. That would have made you a few more quid, Malcolm.
Oh, wouldn't it have just? Yes. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I think it would have gone a bit smoother than the Mirandina did.
There's one for you now, Malcolm. Mike Stewart says, can Elliott Anderson live and thrive within our ever-improving squad, or will he always be playing catch-up and not break into the team properly?
Every single player is playing catch-up. That you can't relax, and particularly in this situation that Newcastle are in right now, where they are seriously looking at just making a huge upward thrust. Everybody's got to improve so much, and if they don't, they fall by the wayside. They've got to move on. It's as simple as that. It's a harsh game, but what Newcastle are doing, they want to do it very quickly. As quickly as they possibly can within the financial restraints that are placed on them by the Fair Play League, and so on and so forth. But yes, they want to do it quickly. So we might find that players, they're in, they're out. And when they're not in the site, then they've got to move on because they have to make the space in the numbers for better to come in. If you look at what Manchester City are now, that's pretty much what Newcastle United are aiming at. And even you look at a really good player like Foden. he's not holding down a first team spot the latter part of the season.
Hello, mate. Your lips are moving there, Steve, but we couldn't hear you.
Give us your views on Elliott Anderson, John.
Yeah, it's a very interesting one. I think he's got huge potential, and I think we've got to be very careful that we don't jettison him too early, because we've done that in the past on occasions. I think he can be a really, really good player. I think, funnily enough, the onus will be more on what he wants to do than what Newcastle want to do, because I know it's all about positions, but I think Elliott Anderson will always get a position with 9 on the bench these days, as well as 11 in the team. I mean, he has more reason for me to sit on the bench than Paul Dummett, than Ritchie, than Manquillo, than Kraft, because he's got more of a future than they have. And therefore, there will always be a position for Elliott Anderson if he keeps developing in the Newcastle squad. What will decide Elliott's future is Elliott. If he gets sick, if, say, sitting 3 seasons at Newcastle on the bench and getting on for half an hour, and playing in the very occasional FA Cup or League Cup tie, and wants first-team football and leaves, or pushes to leave because of that, and go and play with a top championship club in the hopes of coming back into the Premier League, then he will decide that. But from Newcastle's point of view, you would certainly put him ahead of the players I just mentioned for a bench position, Newcastle. And let's be careful of pushing him out, because he has real talent and it might come back to bite us. But I think the decision will be Elliott's, Does he get sick? And then I'm talking about in the next year and a half. I'm not talking about before this season starts. Does he get sick of waiting and want first team football? If he does, he goes.
He needs to get as many games under his belt as he can, as quickly as he possibly can. He needs, and that's the only way that you really pick up experience. That you can become experienced. It's the only way that you can improve. You don't do it. You don't improve on the training ground. You improve.
But you see, I will say, when we're talking about Elliott Anderson, our midfield's not overstocked numerically,
No, that's right. That's right.
It really isn't, because we've got only Bruno, the Italian boy, Willock, and Sean Longstaff. There's 4. Joe Linton, if he's not used in midfield where he's absolutely terrific, can get in the left side of midfield. So if he does that, we've got 4 players for 3 positions. So Elliott becomes 5 for 3 positions over 4 competitions this season. He'll get the chance to play a few games.
Yes, he will. Yes. Yeah, he certainly will.
There he goes again, moving his lips. Is he a ventriloquist or something?
Anderson typically
he's a ventriloquist.
5 minutes here and there. It was class when he came on. Second half and Forest, robbed of the goal. Didn't he hit the bar against Wolves too? He did. Buck Tizer says if Anderson was a young French kid playing for Lille or someone and we were linked to him, the fans would be drooling. The lad is going to be class. And Dave Bullman says Anderson will only improve more training alongside top class players. He's still got a lot of potential. And he's looked good when he has played. And Don says Anderson could play as a 9 as well, the way that he can head the ball. And David McLeod says players are a product of their environment. Just look at the playing environment now, and it's going to get better. Anderson always made a big impact whenever he played. So a lot of fans, a lot of people want to see him do well, lads, which is great.
Yeah.
Yep. And one of our own, as we say, one of ours, and they always have a huge love for the club, don't they? Whether that's Sean Longstaff or whoever it is, if he's a Geordie lad, he has a huge love for the club, and Ando's got that. So yes, make certain we won't jettison too quick. I just hope we can keep him satisfied and happy so he stays with us, rather than have to chase first team football elsewhere. Because believe you me, a few clubs just below what Newcastle are now will eye him and think if we can nick him and they'll try to make him unsettled. If we can nick him, it'll be a good signing for us. So we're going to face that sort of thing. But I think the lad's a prospect.
Broadening across BT as well earlier on said, would you agree that there's not much hopes of the likes of Jay Turner, Cook, Joe White, Lucas de Ball, Dylan Stevenson getting into the first team? Miley's another one. JB has said there. Do you guys reckon Miley will be part of the first team next season?
Yeah, well, I mean, Miley's got a great chance long term. He's 17. He made his debut in the last game.
Yeah.
He's got a chance.
And he's one for the future. You know, that's why we're going out and we are buying top quality players. Tonali, captain of the Italian under-21s, for heaven's sake. Highly rated by just about everybody in Italy. That's the quality that we're going out and buying because that's what we need. And these youngsters, they have got to improve hugely, and I mean huge, if they are going to have a first-team future at Newcastle United.
But we are beefing up our underbelly as well, aren't we? We're signing a lot of 17, 18-year-old kids, a couple from Ireland, a couple from Scotland. We're now looking at the Irish kid that's with Inter Milan.
That's right. And they've got the most wonderful opportunity, but very, very, very few will actually be good enough in the long run to take it.
Oh, that's the way of the world. That's the way of the world. But and that's the way it is when you're a top club. And we're now living in a different situation to what we've lived in for the last decade and a half. It is now a very new world that we're taking part in, and it's a very different world, and we've got to get used to it very quickly.
And when a club is looking to make this massive improvement as Newcastle United are, then there's going to be an awful lot that falls by the wayside, John. An awful lot.
There's no question.
It's going to be a decade of constant change all the time.
All you've got to do is make certain, Malcolm, that you're not caught short at any stage. That you ship people out too quickly because you've got 16 players that are, so much better than everybody else. But 16 is not enough.
No, it's not enough.
You've got to keep the underbelly there. You've got to, and that is what Eddie Howe is doing right now. That is why Matt Ritchie got an extra contract. That is why Gillespie got an extra contract. That is why Dummett was offered an extra contract. These guys haven't got any future at Newcastle beyond one more season. But you can't get rid too quickly, else you suddenly wake up. I mean, Chelsea went the opposite way and suddenly woke up and had 63 people and had to build a new dressing room to put the overflow in. We can't go the other way and find out that we haven't enough people. And so it's getting the balance. And the reason why these guys are still on an extra contract in Newcastle, because on the surface, you're staggered on the surface to think Ritchie gets an extension, Gillespie gets an extension, Dummett gets an extension. You think, what? Really? But yes, it's a squad of 24 or something. It's not a squad
25. Yeah.
Yes, so you've got to get the balance.
Question on the screen there for you. Jasmine Black says, does Supermac remember a player called Richie Powling?
I do indeed.
I've got an old bubblegum card of him, but not heard anything about him as mainly a reserve player.
Where's he been? Because Malcolm tells the story magnificently. Where you been, Jasmine? Go on, Malcolm.
Oh yeah, Tubby was his nickname, and it was the season before I arrived that he made his debut, and Arsenal kicked off. And remember, Bertie Mee was the manager at the time, and he left at the end of that season. And Arsenal went through right through the middle. Tubby Powling, he He got right away there to the edge of the box, and all of a sudden, his first touch in the first team, in the first division, his first touch is suddenly just come in front of him, and he's taken a shot, and it's gone in, and he scored with his first touch. Fantastic! Oh, what a happy guy he was. He got in the dressing room with Arsenal 1-0 up, and they had, having scored so early in the game, Arsenal, they sort of sat back and just defended for all their life to hold on to the lead, which is the way that they used to play it under Bertie Mee. And and he's gone into the dressing room feeling dead chuffed with himself. And Bertie Mee, the manager, has come up and he said, "What the hell do you think you were doing? Scoring so early. You've just now put us right under pressure for 89 minutes." And he gave him the telling off of a lifetime. And welcome to Arsenal's world. It was Bertie Mee's world at that time. That was his first touch in the game, and he got the bollocking of a lifetime for it.
You know what you've just done, Malcolm? You've just explained to me, which is rather wonderful, the Joe Kinnear, Steve McLaren, and Steve Bruce philosophy that they told the Newcastle team, whatever you do, don't score early. Don't score early. And the team carried it out, you know. They never did score early.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I now understand exactly what was going on when I was sitting in the press box, utterly bemused by what I was watching.
John Ball, yes, you are correct, mate. There does need to be a certain amount of homegrown players within the squad, and that's why certain players will certainly will do his offers.
Right, just before we go on to the next subject, because we're running a bit short on time, can anybody please tell me how I can access the under-21 final on Saturday evening? So I want to see England under-21s play in the European final against Spain, and most of all, of course, I want to watch Anthony Gordon, because I'm sure that he's going to be in the side and playing. And there isn't a solitary television company in this country who has taken on any of the games from the competition, and they've been offered individual games. Don't want to know. Even the final of the under-21 European competition. I can't believe it.
There you go, Malcolm. UEFA TV app, and it is free, says Les. And Tom says UEFA's website, UEFA TV.
Yes, so you have to watch it on the computer, do you?
The whole tournament has been on there, says Tom.
The interesting thing, guys, and that's absolutely true, and I was talking to Malcolm earlier in the day, the interesting thing is the word on the grapevine, and this may not happen, but the word on the grapevine is that the BBC are making a last-minute approach to UEFA to ask if they can do a one-off deal and show the final.
Oh, well, John, I'm not sure about that, because I understand that UEFA have offered television companies a one-off deal.
No, they offered,
and they're not taking it up.
They offered them a deal at the beginning before the championship started. Then they reopened it after the group stages when England qualified from the group. They said, "Do you want to apply?" And nobody took it up. But just today, BBC are suddenly, and they refused to comment, but the word I'm hearing is that they've gone to UEFA and said, can we do a deal so that we can show as a one-off this final? So there's an outside chance that it might end up on the BBC.
Right.
Where they're going to have it in between Wimbledon and the highlights of the test, I'm not certain, but there you go. It's far from being certain, Malcolm, that they're going to do that. And isn't it sad that it's taken them till 24 hours before the final to show any interest when we've been in the competition all the time.
I think it's absolutely shocking that it's a huge competition. Is this? England have done so well, and the television companies, they don't seem to give a damn.
If you've got a smart TV, you can watch it on there. If you download the app, which is the UEFA TV app, failing that, you can watch it on your computer.
Okay, right, lovely, thank you. Yes, I've got a smart TV. Yeah, well, most things are smarter than me anyway.
Jasmine, thanks you for giving the Paula story, and also says that Sunderland's games next season are going to be on a TV channel called the Comedy Channel, which is great.
I've heard that as well. It's funny you should say that, actually.
Last question we'll give to John. He says, question for John. Have you ever recommended a player to Newcastle, John, and did they listen?
Well, it's funny you should say that. Yes, I have. But just off the top of my head, because obviously I didn't know this question was coming, I remember when Graham Souness was playing for Middlesbrough. He started off at Spurs, and then he went to Middlesbrough, and he played in the same side as Alan Foggin, etc., etc. Jack Charlton was the manager, and they won promotion to the top division. Now, as a player, I thought he was fabulous. As a manager, I thought he was iffy. As a TV pundit, I thought he was great, but very iffy as a manager. Ironically, the only time we had him was as a manager. Haven't we always been like that? Anyway, I knew Graham very, very well at the time. And he phoned me up and he said, Gibbo, he said, look, I've got to get away from Middlesbrough. It's not big enough for me. Can you do a deal with can you get me into Newcastle United? So I said, well, leave it with us and I'll see what I can do. So I phoned Newcastle up and I said, listen, this isn't for a story for the paper. I'm doing you a favour. Graham Souness, pal of mine, wants to come and sign for Newcastle. If you fancy him, you'll have no problem with terms, etc., etc. Okay, they said, we'll let you know. What did they do? They dithered and they dithered, and then they made a decision, which is we'll dither a bit more. So in the meantime, Liverpool come in and make an offer, and he goes to Liverpool, and he wins 3 Champions Leagues and 74 First Division titles and a League Cup and FA Cup. And I always remember phoning Graham halfway through his Liverpool stint and saying, I bet you're still sick, son, that I didn't get you to Newcastle. You could have played in Newcastle and you've had to put up with winning all these trophies at Liverpool. What a shame. So I have recommended a player to Newcastle and they didn't take him.
And they didn't take it. But what's always amazed me, John, and I've never had an explanation from anybody, is that Souness, before he was at Middlesbrough, he was at Tottenham Hotspur as a youngster, and he was dreadfully homesick. And so Tottenham, they did him a favour and released him and let him go, thinking that he was going to go back to Scotland where his family was, and he went and signed for Middlesbrough.
Well, the point is nobody knows where Middlesbrough is. Graham Souness didn't, and Rob Lee didn't, and
I just found it the most bizarre thing.
It's smoggy land. Nobody knows where it is. Well, I suppose it was a bit closer to Scotland, but I always remember that. And dear, can you imagine if Newcastle had got Souness? He would have been a bit. We got him as a manager. No, thank you. We should have had him as a player. Didn't do it. But I did recommend him, and I'm quite happy about that. But I'm very unhappy it didn't happen.
Lads, that hour has passed far too quickly. As always, great to sit and chat to John and Malcolm. And we will be back next Thursday. So have a good week, lads. See you then. Take care.
Yes, indeed. And thank you for all the advice on how to see the games.
Take care. Watch Anthony Gordon win a gold medal, Malcolm. You'll enjoy it.
It'll be lovely. Yeah. And won't that do him the world of good for this coming season?
Yeah. We'll get the benefit next season. Take care, guys.
All right.
We still do 7 NUFC Matters show a week for free. But if you want to help support NUFC Matters, then there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast and video. This helps the channel grow. hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications bell so you don't miss a single show. If you want to help us financially, then you can join the channel using this button with the membership starting at $1.99 a month. Or you can drop us a donation in the chat using a super sticker. We're also looking for sponsors. If you'd like your brand advertised on the flyers for the show and featured during the ad break, then email John at nufcmatters.com to arrange today.